The Hitachi EMUs are perhaps the most iconic and nostalgic type of suburban train that had ever run in Melbourne. Iconic for being the last fleet of trains to wear the green and yellow Met livery and for their fluted stainless steel body shell. In this video, I'm explaining the history of the Hitachi EMUs. It's the 1960s and the Victorian Railway's suburban network in Melbourne needs a new fleet of trains. The old wooden-bodied swing-door trains and Tate trains had been running since 1887 and 1919 respectively, so at this time it was very clear that Melbourne seriously needed a new fleet of suburban trains to service the city. So in 1970 and 1971, when the last of the steel-bodied Harris EMUs had just been ordered, the Victorian Railways ordered an additional 6 Harris trailers. These Harris trailer carriages would serve as prototypes for the upcoming Hitachi fleet, being longer in length, being 75 feet long, and having automatically closing doors. The Victorian Railways' initial order for the Hitachi fleet consisted of just 300 carriages, 150 motor carriages, 100 driving trailer carriages, as well as 50 trailer carriages. However, with the opening of the City Loop just years away, instead 237 motor carriages were built, 117 trailer carriages, and only 68 driving trailers. Now, going by the model name Hitachi, you might think these trains were made by Japanese company Hitachi. However, they weren't. They were built by the Victorian Railways at Newport Workshops, which just manufactured the trailer carriages, as well as Commonwealth Engineering, which supplied the electrical equipment, and Martin and King, which built the carriage bodies for these trains. The Hitachi trains first entered service on the St Kilda line on Christmas Eve of 1972. The first set consisted of motor carriages 1M and 2M and trailer carriages 901T and 902T. When in service, the Hitachis originally wore no livery at all, being predominantly silver of their stainless steel bodies. And at first they were very successful for the Victorian Railways, proving to be quite popular with suburban travellers, having been the first trains to have automatically closing doors as well as heating in the carriages. However, they had no air conditioning, which is why they still had drop-down windows just like their predecessors. The Hitachi EMUs would replace almost all of the Tate trains as well as the entire fleet of swing door trains, which were very run down by this point. Unfortunately, in the evening of June 10th, 1975, a brand new Hitachi motor carriage 27M was hit by a diesel locomotive, that being B-class number B69, on the Long Island Steel train at Frankston. This was the first carriage in the Hitachi fleet to be written off due to an accident.
Fuck! 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 Oh!
A similar accident happened in November 1989 on the Glen Waverley line when a comment set was hit by Hitachi motor carriage 90M. However, on a more positive note, the last of the Hitachi trains were delivered in 1981, but then in 1983, the Met was introduced to combine Melbourne's train, tram and bus network into one fully connected network. Following this, the Hitachis were then painted with green and gold stripes on the sides and front. Around the same time, the last of the Hitachi driving trailer carriages had all been rebuilt and converted into trailer carriages, and this was done to allow Hitachi trains to all run as 3 carriage trains permanently coupled together to run in the City Loop. From 1992 to 1994, some motor carriages received internal and external upgrades to the driver's cabs as part of a refurbishment. This included air conditioning fitted in the driver's cabs, as well as a new interior for the carriages with no more luggage racks and advertising, as well as handholds and poles inside painted yellow. Any motor carriages in the Hitachi fleet that did not receive these upgrades to the driver's cabs were no longer allowed to lead trains when in service, being relegated to the middle of a 6-car Hitachi set. The Hitachis continued to be a workhorse of Melbourne's suburban fleet until the late 1990s, when in 1997, Melbourne's public transport network, the Met, disintegrated into multiple private operators, with the tram network being split into Swanston and Yarra trams, and the train network being split into Bayside and Hillside trains. In October 2000, Hillside and Bayside trains both rebranded to Connex and M-Train, but at this same time, they were now being requested to order 2 new types of electric multiple units to replace the Hitachis. Connex ordered 58 3-car extrapolis EMUs to replace their half of the Hitachi fleet, and M-Train ordered 62 3-car Siemens Nexus EMUs to replace their half of the Hitachi fleet. Both of these new electric multiple unit trains began arriving in Melbourne in December of 2002. They were both fitted with fully automatic doors, as well as air conditioning. After introduction of these new trains to Melbourne, many Hitachi carriages began being withdrawn from service, mostly being stored or either scrapped. Luckily, this wasn't the end of Melbourne's Hitachi EMUs, however, as in 2004, Connex would send 2 of their recently retired Hitachi carriages, 103M and 1962T, up to Bombardier at their Dandenong factory, so that Bombardier could test refurbishment prototypes on these carriages. However, in 2006, just when the rest of the Hitachi trains had been fully withdrawn and sent out for scrapping, 7 trains had to continue operating due to the absence of 31 Siemens Nexus sets. It was found the Siemens Nexus EMUs were plagued by problems of faulty wiring and electronics and had various troubles with their brakes. In 2009, the remaining Hitachi sets had all been sent for refurbishment into the Connex branding and livery, and they'd all gone through heavy rebuilds following corrosion found around the doors and floors of their carriages. Connex lost its contract to run Melbourne's train system in November 2009, handing it over to Metro Trains Melbourne, but because Metro was never supposed to run the Hitachi trains, the Hitachis only received Metro logos over the Connex logos. The remaining Hitachi sets were given a farewell tour in 2014, after nearly 42 years of faithful service. After retirement from service, most Hitachi carriages in Melbourne would be sold off for scrap. However, in 2005, the Newport Railway Museum got its hands on Hitachi motor carriage 187M, which was withdrawn from service back in 2004, and has since been restored into its original livery of silver from the 1970s. 707 operations would buy a full 3-car Hitachi set off of Metro in 2023, and this set is actively having works undertaken right now to restore it to a fully operational standard. So hopefully within the next 3 years from now, we can see this Hitachi set run heritage trains around the Melbourne Metro network. And then earlier this year, Mornington Tourist Railway would then buy a trailer carriage off of Metro and restored it to operational condition to run on their regularly scheduled Sunday excursion trains, which are run with 1960s diesel locomotives and 1940s steam locomotives.